Welcome, everybody, to the latest Sko Show. I'm Shawn and Chase Howell with you here.
You're not Anilo Piro.
I am not, and I guess we have to address that a little bit. Anilo, of course, the longtime host of this show with you. Anilo's moved on to take a new role. Congratulations to him. You always want to move onward and upward, so congratulations to Anilo. But someone else needs to step in and do this, and obviously, I was excited to have the opportunity. I host My Life Sports Today every weekday here, but I'm also the press box announcer for the Colorado Buffaloes football program in the booth there. So it's a neat opportunity to get to jump back into this world a little bit more regularly and break it down with you, Chase. But yeah, smaller guy, big shoes. I'm fully aware of what I have to fill. So congrats to Anilo, and we'll miss him here, but I'm excited to be able to continue getting the Sko Show going.
Yeah, we're obviously going to miss AP. We had a great run here doing the Sko Show for a couple of years and all of the different chemistry, but it's nice to bring in a guy that I consider one of the fellow Buffs.
Thank you.
Obviously very involved with the football program, always up in the press box for every single game. So somebody that has a lot of CU football knowledge and is always around the team. So it's going to be fun doing the show with you. Yeah,
may or may not have stormed the field back in that 1990 run. One of those things that there's probably some footage, but I'm not going to say it's me. So yeah, it goes back a way. It's fun to be able to do this program. Obviously, the organization has been completely revamped under Deion Sanders, and we'll talk a little bit in this program about the coaching staff and what it actually means. But as always, brought to you by our friends at Peckish.
At Peckish, yeah. One of our great sponsors. They have two locations at Bellevue and up on the hill if you're in Boulder. We spent March Madness there. It was probably one of the best places to watch a game. They have a giant screen that they were able to split into 4, so we had all 4 games going at the same time. Yeah, we love it. The wings, the pizza, the beer, anything you want. It is the best of the best. You have to try the wings. There is no better wing in Colorado, and I will go to battle with that. I can't wait to go back again, and obviously Peckish is a great sponsor of the Sko Show.
Yeah, and obviously a fan of the program as well. You know, with the one down in Centennial, you're talking about that DTC area is a big old photo of Deion Sanders at the other Peckish location. That's right. Getting housing some of those wings too. So make sure you check them out at Peckish. But the Buffs in this off season, obviously, it's an important one. They lose Shurmer Sanders. They lose Shiloh Sanders for the first time in his career. Deion Sanders will not be coaching his sons. And that is a new frontier for everybody.
It is. And obviously, I think the biggest news is that Coach Prime is back. He's staying in Boulder, and we have spring practice to talk about. We have a quarterback competition to talk about. But maybe the biggest news that's been going on so far is all these coaching changes. He cannot stop bringing in coaches. It seems like he won't stop. Obviously, they announced Byron Leftwich about a week ago, but all of these Gold Jackets now that are coaching with Deion as well. There's a lot to talk with this coaching staff, and he will say it, and I think a lot will agree with him. He is one of the best coaching staffs in all of college football.
Certainly the most experienced when you're talking about NFL caliber experience. And that's a lot of what the pitch is, right? Deion Sanders is not necessarily a guy that's working on the whiteboard, coming up with plays and working on his playbook. He's kind of the CEO style coach. There's a strategy. We built the program. The program's designed to do this. And it makes CU really unique. Obviously, the only program in all of the NCAA last year that every single one of its football programs on national television. And there's a reason for that. It's compelling. And with Sanders back, the pitch now, which will be supercharged with Shurmer Sanders and Heisman Trophy winner Travis Hunter going in the first probably 5 picks, at worst 10 picks in the NFL draft, both from Colorado, shows exactly what they can do when you're talking about getting players to the next level. And that, to me, is the most fascinating part of the Buffs pitch, right? And in a Big 12 now where Texas is gone, Oklahoma's gone, the Buffs have the opportunity to be the big dog in the Big 12, and their pitch becomes a little different. It's not Alabama. It's not Ohio State. It's not those schools say, come to us, Notre Dame, and be one of a part of this long line of former champions. And that doesn't appeal to a lot of athletes. But a lot of kids are like, look, I don't even intend to be here for 4 years. I'd like to get a good education or close to it. But my plan is I'm going pro. I have the NFL on my mind. And you can get into the idea of whether student athletes should be doing that or not. It's irrelevant. But guess what? That horse left the stable a long time ago. That's the pitch for the Buffs. Come to Colorado. Come to Boulder. We have not only me and not only the eyeballs that I bring, but now a coaching staff that almost man for man can give you the kind of attention from guys that have been there at the NFL level. And for a lot of players, while it seems crazy for the Buffs to have this huge coaching staff, adding Marshall Faulk and Dominic Pecco, you're adding Hall of Famer like Andre Girard, who played with the Buffs in 10 years in the NFL, mostly with Dallas. But now it's almost, you have almost whatever position you play, you have almost a coach for your position that has NFL experience or very high championship level college experience. And the plan is come to Denver, come to Boulder. We'll send you on Sundays.
You're a defensive lineman recruit. You're going to walk into a room with obviously Deion Sanders. You're going to walk into a room with Dominic Pecco, who played 15 years in the NFL. And you're
Hall of Famer Warren Sapp.
Also, Warren Sapp's going to be sitting there with his gold jacket on. So offensive line, you're walking in with George Hegeman, who played in the NFL, Andre Girard, as you mentioned. It seems like almost at every position now, he is somebody that either coached in the NFL or played in the NFL, and they did it at a very, very high level. So if you're a young kid, you might have offers from Ohio State, Alabama, but if your real goal is not, and they're obviously going to try to win national championships, but if your real goal is not winning the national championship and it's going to the NFL, which if these kids were honest about it, that probably is their main goal when they go to college football, there's not a better staff.
Look, it was for Jordan Seaton when the Buffs recruited the very top lineman in the country. It was for Julian Lewis when you get the top quarterback in the country. These are guys who are planning on playing on Sundays, and they could play just about anywhere, but they're choosing to play at Colorado because this is exactly the idea. And in an NIL driven world, I think it's the right plan. You're not really counter programming because of course those big programs are doing the same thing. But for the Buffs, the opportunity to say, look, when you go and join Alabama, Notre Dame, Ohio State, you're joining them and their existing program, what they do. The Buffs pitch is quite the opposite. We're here for you. Our objective is to get you here on Sunday. So we're not asking you to just come in and do it necessarily the Buffs way. We're going to work with you and make sure we get you to the NFL. And the other difference is they plan to get them there the quickest, right? We know not all of these guys have 4 years on their mind. We know that's the case. There are minimums in the NFL to get into the draft. But the Buffs also understand right off the bat, and it doesn't seem to be any problem whatsoever to say, yeah, we get it. You're not going to be here to graduate. We hope you come back and graduate because Deion Sanders is very concerned about GPAs, which have been very good, and understanding that not every one of these guys will get to the pros. But it's really compelling, and that's part of the reason it's working out. The idea was, well, yeah, transfer portal's one thing, but can you recruit? He's gotten the best of the best at two different important positions, arguably, if you want an offense, quarterback and left tackle. The two you need, they're building blocks, and they got the best in the country 2 years in a row. So this is a concept that works, and you got to retain guys that are important. Robert Livingston did such a tremendous job. He gets a new deal for 2 more seasons. That's a big deal. This is why Deion Sanders is here, Chase, because you remember the idea that he might get hired, right? And what programs would go after him. The main pitch was his assistant coach pool. That's what he wanted. Only 2 schools were willing to do that. Cincinnati, now in the Big 12, and Colorado. Colorado was the one that did it. He's taking full advantage of it. The coaching staff feels like it's almost as big as the roster.
It is. It's crazy. What other team has 3 offensive line coaches?
Right.
It's insane what he is able to build. And I guess that's because of the new NCAA rules. But also on that note of what you were just talking about, one of the things that Coach Prime said when he got here, I think it was his opening press conference, and this is right when NIL is really booming. That's when everybody was talking about NIL. He said here, the goal is not going to be NIL, it's NFL. And he has really put that to work. I think he was talking to the team at some point last week, and he said, what was your main goal for being here? Was it a bag? Put your hand up. He's like, I know it wasn't a bag because I asked every single one of you what your main goal is, and it's all NFL or it's another massive career goal that's not even the NFL. We've seen what he's done with some of the other players with that as well. But he has put that to work. Everything that he said in his opening press conference, he has done, which has been maybe one of the more impressive things that he's done over the first 2 years.
Is there a potential drawback that you can see? I mean, at a certain point, can you have too many coaches? I get that having Marshall Faulk and Warren Sapp, guys like that, can be also helpful for recruitment. But can you have too many? Can there be too many different coaches and too many layers of coaching in between Deion Sanders as the head coach and his players?
Well, for one, Sean, we really haven't seen it. Back in
this
the
feels
day,
pretty new, right?
a year ago, I think it was about a year when they changed this rule that you could only have 11 coaches on the field working with their guys, plus your graduate assistant. So if you were an analyst, you technically couldn't be on the field during practice. And now that's changed, and now they're able to have, I think, as many as they want, unlimited. So we haven't seen it yet. But where you would see that really become an issue would be if they weren't on the same page. And you listen to D'Amato Pecco and Warren Sapp talk about how they are working with each other, and they say you could go into George Hilo's room, you could go into Warren Sapp's office, you can go into D'Amato Pecco's office. They are all preaching the same exact message, and that's what they're saying in front of the media, and it sounds like it's true. And if that is true, that's where it doesn't become a problem to have this many coaches.
Yeah, it might be a space problem at Folsom Field trying to fit everybody. You got all the coaches, the graduate assistants. You still have to leave room for Lil Wayne and The Rock and Matthew McConaughey and LeBron James and Kevin Durant and all those guys too. So it's going to be some pretty crowded.
Well, we know they need a new press box up there. So hopefully they have a little bit more room for the coaches.
Yeah, obviously, as the program continues to blossom, they installed the new video boards, and that obviously enhanced the experience for the fans. Like that's the fans and the alums come first. Us unwashed media types, they'll get to us eventually. It's fine. Not all that concerned about it. But adding more coaches, and you talk about the idea that there still might be big names coming to the coaching staff. Leftwich, the most recent addition. We'll talk with him with the quarterbacks in a moment. But you think that Deion Sanders might be reaching into his bag of tricks and grab another big name soon enough?
Well, he teased at it a little bit, and this was pre-Byron Leftwich news. He said, we're going to add 2 more, and we're going to show the nation that this truly is the best coaching staff in the country. A couple days later, Byron Leftwich is spotted at practice, confirmed that he is joining the staff. So there's 1 more out there. And that makes the Twitter start to talk, and a lot of the rumors start to fly. We don't know who it's going to be. It's all rumors right now. But the one name I'll throw at you, Shawn, and we'll see if you agree. Byron Leftwich comes to come help the offensive side. So I'm going to guess it's going to be somebody that's going to help the defensive side of the ball. And I think it might be another gold jacket. Ed Reed, who we know has been wanting to get into the coaching world. Obviously good friends with Coach Prime. He spent some time in Boulder last year at practices. I could see Ed Reed end up joining the staff. It also takes a little bit of the burden off of Coach Livingston, who coaches the safeties as well as defensive coordinator. You have another safeties coach in there to help out. I think it makes a lot of sense to bring in even 1 more gold jacket, Shawn.
It might, and when you look at Reed last time, he had a very, very short stint, less than a month at Bethune-Cookman when it did. They ended up not being on the same page after the hiring occurred, and obviously that's probably a concern. But when that happened back then a couple years ago, he said specifically, "quote My vision is probably moving too fast for a lot of people." Well,
who else does that?
Yes, I mean that is a Deion Sanders thing, right? Let's just move quick. And the funny thing is, not going to sit here and say Sanders is infallible. He's not. But the idea, of course, was when he came to Colorado and did all the stuff in the transfer portal, a lot of other programs looked at it and said, well, that's not the way you can build a program. Not only is it a way to build a program, it's become the way to build the program. He was ahead of the curve, and every other top 25 university is trying to catch up to it. Now this idea with the coaching staff, go out there without the limits, go grab the guys you worked with. And again, you're talking now about not just guys that played in the NFL, guys that played the NFL for a long time at a high level, guys that were drafted high like Byron Leftwich, guys that are played 10 plus years like Gerard, guys that are Hall of Famers like Sapp and Deion Sanders himself. The idea behind this, and yes, you have to find out how much they can coach. Not every player makes a good coach, but some of the idea, I think this is sort of a clever way of doing it. With so many coaches, you also shrink their responsibilities. And so the idea is, well, Marshall Faulk hasn't coached. Can he coach running backs? Well, he's not doing everything that you think it is. There are all these narrow little slices. And while it's not a traditional way of handling coaching at the NCAA level, it might very well work, because even though it's not apples to apples at the NFL level, there are an awful lot of people with very specific roles. That's what Deion Sanders is familiar with. That's what he's trying to sell to the kids. That might actually work up in Colorado, but again, we won't entirely know until we see it.
No, and it's just that we haven't seen it before. And I think this is what we see in a Coach Prime world that we live in now. It's always evolving, always finding different ways to do things. And I think it's really exciting. But you're your point is correct. I think what he likes to do is take the burden off. You bring in a Warren Sapp who hasn't coached before, doesn't have much experience. He comes in as a GA, and now his role's a little bit bigger a year later. He's not putting a lot of pressure on these guys that don't have a ton of experience coaching, but we're obviously really good players. You look at the guys they brought in as offensive line coaches, that reigns true as well. Now, Marshall Faulk, he does have his own running back room. He might be one of the few that's an actual position coach, but it doesn't. I don't think you can get any worse in terms of your running back production. So
no.
So what's the big risk with bringing in Faulk?
You might be able to recruit some better running backs too. Now, well, then that leads to the question. So let's look at some of these coaches. We know that Pat Shurmer's back as the offensive coordinator. We know that Faulk's in the running backs room. This was the biggest issue for the Buffs offensively, and it has been for the 2 years since Prime's been in charge of it. And the truth of the matter is, they thought in a couple cases they had transfers that were going to get it fixed. They had the transfer to Houston a couple years ago, didn't pan out. They brought in Dallin Hayden from Ohio State, kind of didn't pan out. What does the running game need to look like? How much of this can Marshall Faulk improve it, or how much of this is a Pat Shurmer thing where now in a post-Shurmer Sanders era, not only do you have to deal with a new quarterback, but you have to give that new quarterback help. You've got to give them a running game. It's a quarterback's best friend.
I think these running backs, it takes everybody to have running back production. Obviously, you need a good offensive line. Your quarterback can help out as well. But these running backs, Isaiah Gustav, we saw enough. When he had a hole, he burst right through it.
He continued over the course of the season to the idea was the pecking order would have been Hayden and then maybe a mix with Gustav and Welch, but it's kind of solved itself. Gustav kept bubbling at the top. Welch was effective in spots, and Hayden just kind of had to fight for the scraps, and maybe who knows.
And I like how each one of these running backs can kind of do different things for you. Dallin Hayden's a very different running back from Isaiah Gustav. Michael Welch is a little bowling ball out there that will do a lot of different things than the other two as well. So as long as this offensive line can play well, I think having a guy like Caden Salter at quarterback, who is a true run threat, a proven run threat with his legs, I think that can also open up a lot of things when it comes to RPOs and different option plays and having to worry about the quarterback's legs. I think that can open up some holes for these running backs as well. So we're going to see hopefully a different offense. I think the way that Pat Shurmer has talked during his press conference at Spring Ball, he said, hey, we had Deion Sanders. We had all these weapons at wide receiver. We had to throw the football a lot. And we ran a lot of RPOs that it wasn't real. It was more like, hey, we're going to pass. And if you have to run it, we'll run it. But Shador, if that pass was open, he was making the pass. He wasn't going to hand that ball off to the running back. And I think going forward, we're going to see a lot more RPOs. That's like, hey, your first option is to run the football here, and maybe the run production starts to peak up from there.
Caden Salter, the transfer out of Liberty, the final 2 years he had at Liberty, ran for nearly 1,600 yards and 19 rushing touchdowns. That was to go along, by the way, with 47 passing touchdowns over that same span. So you're talking about a guy that's been very productive. But obviously, when you have a transfer that's considered to be one of the better quarterbacks that was in that level of college football, and then you bring in the number one recruit in the country in Julian Lewis. Already, here we are, it's not even spring ball, and we're talking quarterback controversy. What's the challenge for Leftwich now in this role to manage these guys, to coach them up, and to handle the potential personalities? Because both of these quarterbacks have the NFL on their mind.
The good news from what we've seen so far in press conferences, social media, doesn't seem like Caden Salter or Julian Lewis have much of an ego. And what Julian Lewis has already said, I think, during his press conferences, he knows that he might have to come in here and sit behind a veteran, and he didn't seem very worried about it when he was talking about it.
Salter's here for 1 year no matter what, because that's obviously what he's got in eligibility left. So if you're Julian Lewis, who graduated early to make sure he could get this going, you might just want to let your body grow a little bit and learn and slow it down. I'm not really sure if the end goal for Julian Lewis is you want to be first round selection of quarterback in the NFL. I'm not really sure that sitting for a year hurts you in that. The idea is keep your eyes on that goal, right? I mean, if that's the goal, maybe coming in and trying to unseat a guy as a freshman, that might not be the best path. If Lewis could embrace this and be ready, because obviously if you're a running quarterback and Salter, injuries are always a concern. But it's heartening to hear that Lewis understands, hey, my goal is within the next 4 years or so, I'm playing on Sundays in the NFL. I don't have to worry about what happens today as long as what I'm doing is going on the right path to get me there.
It's probably why Salter was one of the best candidates to come in here. He's a guy that only has 1 year of eligibility, which should give Julian Lewis a lot of peace of mind, has plenty of experience, has been productive, and a guy that is willing to come in here and compete. Even he said when he was talking to the media that he knows he's going to be in a competition with Julian Lewis. He wasn't worried about that when he came here. He knew that they were bringing in Julian Lewis when he decided to come to Colorado. So I think it's kind of, from the outside, from what we've seen so far, it's kind of a perfect situation for both of them to have this competition in spring ball. Now, having said that, through the first couple of weeks, what we saw on Well Off Media, the pregame show, and a couple of other clips that we get from spring ball, even the CU Buffs account tweeted a beautiful throw from Julian Lewis. So how do you not start to hype up this kid when we see in spring ball throughout 2 weeks, he doesn't even know the offense that well. He's already out there making plays. And if he plays great in either scrimmage against Syracuse or scrimmage against his own team, they're not going to be able to stop the hype train that is Julian Lewis.
And that's the luxury for the Bucks. It's tricky for Salter. Salter knows he's coming into a spot where if he wins that job, he's in good shape, but he does have to hold off the top prospect in the country. And I agree with you. I think this is going to be very simple. I think they presume Salter, given his experience, will probably take the job. But they're not going to stop Julian Lewis if he's clearly the better quarterback.
And I think if that ends up happening throughout spring ball, and I was kind of surprised a little bit by the hype train. Like, you would almost think bringing in a guy like Julian Lewis, where there's already going to be some hype around him coming in.
You bet there will.
And then posting tweets about him throwing off his back foot 40 yards, right in the bucket. It's like, all right, guys, hey, you know that if you keep tweeting this type of stuff, there's going to be a lot of talk on social media. You're going to have to deal with why is he not starting come August. But if he looks that good, they might just keep posting about him.
And getting additional attention does not dissuade Deion Sanders. So it's not really a problem. You're talking about one of the guys that's in great position to do it. Obviously, the coaching staff expands. We'll find out who their last coach is, apparently. One more of the Avengers to fill out, I guess, for Deion Sanders when you're talking about that coaching staff. And then Byron Leftwich with both an opportunity and a challenge in front of him. He's going to need to hit the ground running because obviously with the quarterback position and the Buffaloes, they don't want to lose any ground. They expect to find themselves in, at bare minimum, a bowl again next year, and if not, competing for the Big 12 championship.
Here's your Super Bowl winning offensive coordinator that's coming in as an offensive analyst. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot of talent there. It's exciting. It's a great time to be following the bus program. Even if you're late to the parade, it's going to be even more fascinating, I think, this year in many ways without Shurmer Sanders there. We're going to learn a lot about Deion Sanders and the way that his coaching staff works, a lot about the program, but all systems go for the Buffs. It's a treat to get to talk about it with you. It's exciting to get to join the show with you, Chase. I'm personally thrilled.
We have so much fun on this show, Shawn, and I think we're going to keep having a lot of fun, especially as long as Coach Prime is here.
Yes, and it will come with a lot of wings, pizza, and beer.
That's right.
Because we're going to be our friends at Peckish Boulder and the Denver Tech Center. Check them out at peckishco.com for more. That'll do it for us. We'll be back with another one soon enough. But obviously, for Chase Howell, I'm Sean Drotar. This is the Sko Show for a reason. Sko Buffs.
Sko Buffs. You know how it is. I didn't know if you knew we say it at the end, but
of course I know it goes. Come on.
Sko Buffs.
Not my first radio pal. We'll be back at it next time right here on Mile High Sports.